You know, when I got to this episode, my perspective for this episode, like every other episode, I completely forgotten what this episode was really about. And since I've reviewed the Steven and Connie episodes that centers around them going inside of Rose's room, along with the season 4 episode where Steven, technically talks to his mother, this episode really feels like the most forgotten in comparison to those episodes, mainly at the fact that I just didn't realize how dark this episode was, because watching the episodes before this, they were much more darker, mainly the Cat Fingers and the Two May Birthdays episodes. So after watching this episode in preparation for this review, Rose's Room is one of the most unique episodes when it comes to the mysteries behind Pink Diamond herself and the fact that she instantly makes her room mainly a trauma room for any person, mainly Steven. Let's be real. I know some people may disagree with me on that, judging of how Rose's Room is being displayed differently in comparison to the other rooms, but in all honesty, that's what I see after watching the whole show and rewatching this episode. In this episode, Steven wants to hang out with the Crystal Gems, but unfortunately they're busy with a mission, so he takes his mind off of playing a video game that he was close to finishing. But when the Crystal Gems come back, they have the Wheeling Stone, which Amethyst activated, and it broke Steven's TV, which causes Steven to be extremely upset, so he goes to Rose's room for some time alone. And it was mainly from his gem that activated Rose's room, since that the gem was also part of Rose. Inside of Rose's room, Steven keeps himself occupied by being alone, but when he realized that he can't eat any food after eating the donuts that poofed away, he wants to go to the Big Donut, and he goes to the Big Donut, but he's still in Rose's room. To the point that every character that Steven interacts act too nice, which is really creepy, and they don't move with their legs. Mainly Sadie and Lars saying goodbye to Steven, but they're not moving completely. I mean, they are, but not moving their legs. And don't even get me started on Connie. You wanna know why I use the image for my original intro of Cartoon Crisis 3 that has Connie not having eyes, even if it was from Bubble Buddies? This was the episode because there's no escape from No Mercy. And that's what I dealt with by doing Cartoon Crisis 3 material. And while this is more disturbing than Bubble Buddies, this is also the indication that Rose's room is the total opposite of the real world that Steven has dealt with numerous of times. Let me just say that this episode really demonstrates the nature of what Rose really is, who is Pink Diamond, and to tell you the truth, if this is literally the inside of her mind on how she feels, while she only wants happiness, then this episode definitely aged way more better in comparison to the other episodes that I've talked about, mainly Lars and the Cool Kids. Because if this is literally the nature that Pink Diamond sees when it comes to her surroundings, then believe it or not, it kinda makes sense. Now, I understand that it's supposed to be a difference when it comes to how Rose's room doesn't always have the same qualities, and it's literally not the same as in reality, but as far as I'm concerned, if that wasn't really the case whatsoever, despite people watching this episode back in 2014, Rebecca Sugar probably hinted these indications way ahead of time since she planned on this from the very beginning. You know, even if it was a bad idea or not, I'm honestly impressed that people are just missing out on these episodes after watching a single pair of walls, or mainly any other material that centers around Pink Diamond being a terrible leader and a terrible person. I understand that people can't give a show a second binge watch, considering that they will probably move on to other shows, mainly reactors, but believe me, whenever I look at this episode after rewatching it, it just gave me the indications that Rose just isn't the character that she was. And considering that it's mainly the fact that Steven can't be able to get out of her room, on the fact that he doesn't know how to after he got in, since that he needs alone time. I doubt Paul, Garnet, or Amethyst will ever put Steven in a scenario where he gets trapped inside of the rooms with no way out, similar to Rose's room. And considering that Steven apologizes to the Crystal Gems at the end for yelling at them, to tell you the truth, the Crystal Gems are literally doing what's really important, and even though that they're literally doing what they can, it doesn't change the fact that they unintentionally put Steven in a position where he needed alone time. With them making amends, I'm not even sure if Rose is willing to make amends with Steven if she didn't turn into Steven. That's mainly a fact of how the Crystal Gems aren't as neglectful as some people think. But even if it may be a joke or mainly something that people just troll about, I'm still standing by my points. I really liked this episode with the atmosphere inside of Rose's room and seeing how it indicates Rose's character in the later seasons. Let's be real, I really felt like that rewatching these aspects from the show just has huge indications of what this show is going to be like as the series progressed. And since we still have a long way to go, let's just get into the following episode that indicates that Fusion just isn't really stable, and there's really an indication that Amethyst and Garnet don't have self-control, and this is before, obviously, where we see that Garnet is the Fusion. I'm giving this episode an 8.25 out of 10.